um, I feel so bad because I go to pet the cats and they'll be laying on the couch. And if I've just gotten up from the couch or something, and then I go to pet them, they get a big old shock. And I'm like, oh no.
That's awful.
I feel terrible for them.
Or
But
cats, you're electrocuting them.
well, and then, I'll go to turn the light on or something, um, and then I just get like a giant like shock. I
Shoot.
wonder what this live on
Your
work.
glasses match your shirt.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So fun.
Yeah, that wasn't on purpose. I just obviously not on purpose. I'm trying to figure out this Facebook thing.
Good idea, because we have a great topic today. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes, we are talking about boundaries. So my microphone always gets in my way. I have to figure out how to move my keyboard so I can get to
Well,
it.
that microphone has muffled your echo. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, and that was the whole point. I wasn't holding it. It wasn't close enough to my face before. So obviously now I understand. Well,
So
I
that
guess
eat the
because
microphone is a thing.
well, and it has to be close enough to your face so that it's not picking up all the other background noise in the room, right? Because obviously it's supposed to. I don't know. Um, yeah, we are talking about boundaries.
I like the adulting 101.
Yes. Well, so, um, yeah, I don't remember exactly why I was thinking about this, but there's been several conversations I've had with people over the last couple of months, at least, lots of people. I've gotten out of my normal zone of people that I used to talk to all the time, and I've started meeting a lot of people, and we have a lot of conversations that are kind of like on the next level of thinking. And so, I mean, and really part of this is because I have been more conscientious about who I spend my time with. So I like to spend time around people who are um, focused on personal growth, business growth, growth in general. And because there's really, like, we all, I mean, for the longest time I was in my comfort zone. And there, how there's a saying that says there's no growth in the comfort zone. So I had to get out of my comfort zone and start meeting new people. And in the process, I've started learning a lot about personal growth. And it's the old joke about how people go to the self-help section of the bookstore because they want to learn something. And self-help always kind of had like a negative connotation, almost like, what do you have what's your problem, and you're going to go help yourself? How do you do, and but there's a reason those books are there. It's because these people have figured out the secrets of life and they want to help other people. It's not so like, yes, it's a self-help because by reading the book you're helping yourself to change and grow, but it's actually less self-help and you're getting advice from experts and people who have figured this stuff out. So I think that's just so funny, like when you really think about it. The self-help. And now I don't even know if it's still called the self-help section. I haven't been to a bookstore for a long time. um, but I've read so many books, and it's just basically, think about it, what is a self-help book? It's nonfiction, so it's a true story or factual book about how to change the things that you don't like in your life. You want to change your life, this is how you do it. So we're talking adulting 101, and I guess that's the, I think that's the section that should be called adulting 101, because we were never taught this stuff. And
Or by our parents.
no, I mean, I think some of the stuff is taught to us by our parents without them even knowing that that's what they were teaching us, and without us knowing that that's what we were learning. So we don't know that we have to pass that on to our kids, because there's obviously been a disconnect at some point, right? Between what we learned from our parents or what our parents learned from our grandparents that's not getting passed down to our kids. And, a lot of people will blame it on technology and the fact that kids are sitting in front of video games and stuff like that. And it's not, I don't think it is technology. I mean, I think that technology has actually helped us be able to be more connected to people and to learn stuff easier and faster. And it's the life skills and the life lessons that parents need to teach their kids is what's not like happening somehow. So I what was like when did you learn about boundaries? Like, that's the topic of today, is boundaries and what boundaries are. Like,
I think
when
I'm
did you
still
learn?
learning about that.
Well, we do. I mean, it's an ongoing process. But when did you first hear like somebody like mention something in the form of, this is a boundary issue?
Probably in my 30s because I probably wasn't really paying attention in my 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, do you remember anything where, like, an experience that you had where maybe you had some kind of a boundary issue? I mean, I have stories, so if you don't want to, you know, come up with something on your own, I mean, because maybe there's nothing, but
I'm sure there's several boundary stories over the years.
so, I mean, I think the first question for most people is what are you talking about when you mean boundaries? So I have a whole book. It's by a guy named Henry Cloud. He's a psychologist, I think. So it just means that we are responsible to other people and for ourselves. So I don't know if you. This is so funny. Did you happen to see last week around Thanksgiving? Um, Maybe the week before. It was a lady posted on Facebook, and this apparently broke the internet because the guy in the grocery store was telling me about it, and I had seen it, but I didn't. Um, I, I saw it, and it was so this lady posted a picture of her black pumpkin pie, like that it was she was saying, "Thank you, Marie Callender's, for ruining Thanksgiving."
Oh,
Does
yes, I did see
did
that.
you see that, right? And so I'm sure if you haven't seen it, it's basically just it's one of those Marie Callender's pumpkin pies that you buy in the freezer section of the grocery store, and you take it home, and there's instructions on the back of the box. You put it in the oven for an hour or whatever at 350 degrees or whatever the instructions say on the box. And after an hour, I mean, we've eaten these things, they're great. I mean, when you want a quick dessert that you don't have to put a lot of work into, but it's a freshly baked pie. It's great. Um, and so apparently she somehow messed up in the directions or something, and her pie was completely black on top, and like the inside,
I didn't get what she did wrong, so I don't know.
I mean, I don't know either because I never saw the actual like post. I just saw like people screenshotting like the post, and then some of the comments from some of the people in the peanut gallery who were like laughing about. And really, I mean, if you think about it, this is a woman or a person, whoever posted this thing, a person who has boundary issues, because like, so the definition of a boundary issue is understanding, like, Marie Callender's has a big long track record of selling pies and desserts and stuff like that. And if they give you directions to go home and here's how you cook the pie, you put it in your oven, if your oven's broken, that's not Marie Callender's fault. That's not that company's fault. Like, and if you mess up and put it on preheat and forget to turn it to the bake cycle, which my oven does that automatically now, but I remember back when I lived with my parents and their old oven that we had, if you forgot to turn it from preheat to bake, then you would nuke something like completely beyond belief. And whatever it was you were trying to bake would turn out just charred on the outside and like cold on the inside. It was I don't, it's just because the oven's like in like extra mode or whatever. And so, like, I don't know if that was what the person did, but they obviously made a mistake, and then they go on to to social media and they're blaming the company for giving them a bad product, and it was their own fault.
Wow.
So that's one example of a boundary issue. And so like, you know, I think boundaries and personal accountability, they kind of go hand in hand, like knowing what you, holding yourself accountable for things and understanding what's within the realm of what is my responsibility as a human, as a person, as an employee, as a leader, what is my responsibility, and as a parent especially. So like you hear about helicopter parents and how, and I've heard teachers who have talked about, I had a friend who was a teacher and he was, I think he was second grade, but he was just talking about how the parents, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are so over involved in what their kids are doing that they're emailing the teacher every day about the little things that are going on in class. And it's like, you're sending them to school to learn, because obviously you have a reason why you aren't teaching them yourself with homeschool or whatever. So you have to realize that that teacher is responsible for everything that goes on in class, and that they have gone through school and certifications, and the school hired them because they met certain qualifications or whatever. And so that you have to at some point trust the teacher with what's going on. And I mean, my kids teachers never heard from me when they were kids, and I always kind of wondered what they thought if I was like completely uninvolved. I was busy. I had work. And if I wasn't hearing that my kid was causing a problem in class, aside from not doing their homework or something, I didn't expect to hear from the teacher. And I didn't think the teacher really needed me bothering them because they have so many things to do. So, I think a lot of people have just gotten to the point where they want to micromanage and control everything. And, with kids, especially in raising kids, you have to understand that we cannot do everything for our kids. Like, we just can't. You have to teach them to do stuff for themselves. And so like there's all these, you hear all these people say stuff like teach a man to fish, so that he can eat well, because if you just give him a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. There's a reason why people say that stuff, because that's exactly like, you have to take that and apply it into like every aspect of what you're doing. And
Absolutely.
especially with raising kids. So boundaries are anything that differentiates you from someone else, and shows you where you begin and end. So, like, a great example is your skin, like your body. This is my body. You cannot control my body. You can't, like, I mean, if I want to lose weight, it's up to me. I have to decide to do the things that are going to make me lose weight, because somebody else can't um, exercise for me. I mean, you
Dang
can't
it.
go on a walk and I expect to lose the weight. And if you're putting, and I guess another good example of this is if you're cooking my meals and I'm blaming the fact that I gained weight on your good cooking, that's probably not a very good, I mean, that's a boundary issue. I can't blame Carrie for being an amazing cook and the fact that I gained weight. It's my problem because I had a portion control issue, like, and that I see that too, where I've seen some documentaries, where people are suing McDonald's because they got fat, you know? So it's not McDonald's fault that you're fat. It's not. And I mean, I literally saw this one documentary where it was a family, and it was a family of like five, and they would go and get dinner, and I think they ate McDonald's almost every night. So the example is that they didn't have a lot of money, and so McDonald's made their meals all supersize, and that's why they don't have supersize anymore, because they, like, somebody came in and said you can't do this, right? Because people were, they would go to McDonald's and they'd buy um, the cheap burgers off the dollar menu or whatever, and then so like they would wind up feeding their whole family with, you know 10 to $15 worth of like junk food. And it was because it was like burgers off the dollar menu and giant large fries and the drinks and stuff. And so they were saying, well, McDonald's is the one that made us fat because we can't afford to eat healthy. And and it's like, when you blame other people, that's you're not taking responsibility for your own self. Um, so
They
and
could
then
use some 101 skills
oh
of
yeah,
adulting.
right. Well, and then the worst part is the documentary is kind of like compounding the problem, because then they're telling everybody out there that, you know, it's because of these evil fast food places that everyone's fat. No, it's not. It's our own laziness that makes us fat, because we didn't take the 30 minutes to make dinner instead of sitting in a fast food drive-through line for 30 minutes. Like, I got a whole story about that, but we'll save that for another day, because I was livid the other day when when my son asked me to go to stop through the drive-through, and I'm like looking at all the cars, and I'm just like, ah. But
They all need a
so
financial plan. I do have a
well,
boundary story to share that just popped into my
oh
brain
yeah,
if you would
let's hear
like
it.
to hear it. So, after doing many financial plans over the years for families of people who are entering retirement age, they have blamed the fact that they have helped their adult children all
Yes.
these years to why they don't have their retirement funded yet. And so we as young adults need to know that once our children hit 18, they're responsible for themselves.
Yes.
And you need to teach them along the way as young children of how to be ready to adult. I have not asked my family or my parents for anything in my entire life for financial anything, because I knew if I needed something, I needed to go get a second or a third job if my one job wasn't hitting the goals that I needed to reach for whatever. And so I've known from a very early age that if I wanted something, I had to go earn it and plan for it and make sure that the strategic things that needed to happen to make that goal happen happened. And so having a 101 adulting conversation about like what to buy when in your life is so important, because people don't even know like having a will at 18 is important, because if you die at 18 and a half and you own a car or you have a storage locker in your name, no one can access that without a will. Do people even think about that at 18?
Yeah. No. No.
No.
No, but I do like. I wanted to go back to what you said about the fact that you knew from an early age that you had to go out and work harder if you needed something because you didn't ask your family. Part of that probably came from the fact that you heard the word no from your family.
Oh, all the time. There was
And
never a
so
yes.
yeah, and that was really the next thing on my list of um that's how you can set a clear boundary, is by learning the word no and understanding when to use it and when it's appropriate. Because I've said several times in different videos, just because you can do something because somebody asks you, I mean, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And that goes with a lot of things. I mean, whether it's volunteering your time to help someone, whether it's a child who comes to you and says, Mom, I need this, I need a new pair of shoes, or whatever. I mean, my son would come to me and say, "Hey, do you think I could get a new pair of shoes? Because my shoes I've got a hole in the bottom." Okay, he might have waited a little too long to ask. He thought I was going to say no. And so, like, if your shoes are worn out because your feet have grown and you need a new pair of shoes, then that's something that I'm going to say yes to, of course. But if it's a child who comes to you and they've got 12 pairs of shoes and they say, Mom, I don't have any shoes to wear that look good with this outfit, or I have to have a pair of boots to go do something, or whatever. I mean, you have to decide if that's something that you're willing to pay out for, or if that's something that they should maybe go earn themselves. Because we definitely have that in our house. Like, we have things that we cover because we're the parents: food, shelter, clothing, like clothing within reason. And then the rest of it is, it's not that they have to buy everything themselves. We give them great Christmas gifts, but Christmas does not have to be where you're spending $1,000, $1,500 on your kids, because they just expect to have a great Christmas and also just the rest of the year, you know, and that's just I've seen a lot of people have boundary issues because they give too much. One person I talked to was talking about how he didn't ever have any money and he was wanting to get on a plan and change his life, but people were constantly asking him for money because they knew that he would help and he would feel sorry for them and give them money. And it's like, well, you know, you are what you allow. Like, if you allow people to take advantage of you and constantly ask you for the money that you worked hard to earn, they're just going to keep asking if you keep giving. I mean, if you say no, you know, it's not, people aren't going to just go, oh, I hate you for the rest of your life. Someone with boundary issues will. So if Carrie had a boundary issue when she was young and her parents said, no, you have to go earn the money to do that, and she decided that her parents were evil and horrible and they never helped me out in life, well, that's her issue. Is, you know, that was her boundary issue if she decided to blame her parents for never letting her get ahead because they didn't give her anything, you know. So like there's boundaries on both sides. You have to know that you as a person, you have your boundaries, and if you let other people cross them, then that was your boundary issue. Or if someone else comes and invades your boundary, so like I'll give you an example of this. So, say you're married to someone and you go to the grocery store and they text you 20 times while you're there because they want to know where you are, what you're doing, how long it's going to take you, when are you going to be back? Like, they have boundary issues because they're trying to control everything that you're doing and make sure that they know everything about what is going on. That's a boundary issue in itself. So, like, if you find yourself feeling like you have to respond to every single phone call or every single text because that person might get mad at you, that's an issue. You know, and I think we just it starts little, right? It starts as a little thing, and you know, you go along with something even though maybe you don't. I always thought my I always thought my husband was a little different with, like, he doesn't answer his phone. People call him, but he doesn't answer. And if he doesn't know who's calling, he really doesn't answer. And I was always like, how do you do that? Because I've always been the person who answers my phone. When somebody calls, the phone rings, I answer it because I've been, I guess, trained and conditioned to do that. And I run a business. So I want to make sure that if somebody's calling me and I don't know who it is, you know, I'm going to answer. But, you know, like those are good examples of different types of boundaries because, you know, I mean, most people have gotten to that point where they don't answer the phone if it's a number they don't recognize. Why? Because most of the time, like 99% of the time, it's that lady telling you that your car's warranty is expired. Right?
Yes.
We aren't willing to let that company cross our time boundaries anymore. We are not
True.
going to, you know, even attempt that. So, you know, what you do is you let the phone ring or you send it to voicemail and you find out who's calling and then you call them back, you know? So, I mean, there's so many things that have to do with boundaries, and we have to figure out how to have proper ones to where people aren't crossing ours and we're not crossing theirs, and understanding like what is within our realm of responsibility, I guess. So you can also um, put geographical distance between you and a person with a boundary problem. Like, meaning if you're in a situation where somebody's crossing your boundaries consistently, you need to leave. Like, get yourself out of the the place. And I did that myself. I've done that before. I've actually done it in more ways than one. My old employer was crossing my boundaries in a big way, in a huge way. They acted like they owned me, my body. I mean, like literally, they acted like they owned my body. When you get to a point where you can't call in sick when you're actually sick because they try to say that you're lying, and you have physical problems, and they say, well, that doesn't matter, you still need to come to work. That's a boundary problem. And a lot of employers have gotten, and I mean, okay, so let's not get political, but there is a big thing going on right now. And and when somebody's telling you that you have to do something that you don't want to do, that's a boundary problem. It's, I mean, you can't be forced to do something that you should not want to do, and you should have the right to say no. And so, that's how, like, when you're in a wrong place when it's an either or decision. Either you do what you feel is right for yourself, or you compromise everything to be able to take part in something. And it's like, well, I don't know. And I'm not here to tell people what to do. That's the cool thing is when you understand boundaries, Carrie gets to do whatever she wants. And I have to either be okay with that, or I have to stop associating with her. I mean,
There
and
you
it's
go.
that's not even really an either or, we can here. but but the point is, you decide, you get to decide. If somebody does something that you don't like, remove yourself from the situation and
Absolutely.
start hanging out with other people. Um, and I just, there's time boundaries too. You take ownership of your time, and sometimes you have to take a break from friends or other people who are sucking that time and taking advantage of your time, or doing something like, I know of an acquaintance who would make plans with someone, and this is a big issue these days of people. Most people will say, oh, they're just flaky, and so, like, when you make it, for me, it's an integrity issue. If I make an appointment with someone, I'm there and I show up. If I don't show up to something, I mean, my chiropractor's office a couple times, like, they have called me because I didn't show up, and they're like, hey, did you realize that you had an appointment? And they don't usually do that, I don't think, but they know that when I have an appointment, I show up. And if I didn't, they want to make sure I'm okay because something happened. you know so, but there are certain people, and that's one of the, a conversation that I've had several times is, when you make plans with a friend and they're either late, or they don't show up, or they invite you to their house and then they're not even there.
Oh,
That's an
goodness.
integrity issue, and that's a boundary issue. They are not respecting your time, and they're not respecting your boundaries. So if you make plans with someone, you have, and this is a known thing, especially, I mean, one time or a couple of times something happens, you could get over it. But when it's a consistent issue, you have to decide, do you want to make plans with them? And then, if you do, and you set a boundary and you say, look, if you don't show up at this place at this time, we're leaving without you. If you set that as an expectation and they don't show up on time, they're probably used to, oh, I can just, I'll roll in 20 minutes late, whatever, it's no big deal.
Mm.
To them, maybe it's no big deal, but to you, you're so tired of the issue happening all the time. You have to decide, guess what? I mean, we're going to stick to it. We're leaving at this time. And when that time shows up, you leave. And you know what happens? They start being on time. Or
Amazing.
you stop making plans with them. And it's not a I hate you for the rest of your life thing, and it's not a them hating you for following up on what you said you were going to do. You said you were going to do it. So when you actually do follow through with it, if they are yelling and screaming at you about it, then they've got a problem, because you said this is what you should expect. And so this goes with like kids, grounding, and setting expectations for discipline. If they're doing something wrong, if you ground them and you don't follow through, then they're going to take advantage of you. And I've seen that firsthand because there's been a few times where I haven't followed through, and then and so, like, I mean, but I mean, we all have, it's a work in progress. It's not something that it's just, you go, oh, this is what this is, and automatically you're just an expert at creating boundaries and following. It's just a work in progress. You just have to, it has to be something that you eventually you start noticing, okay, this is a boundary issue. So one thing that people can do is go find support groups. Like if you're in a situation with maybe so for another example, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, and then they have a support group for people who are living with or married, spouses, children, whatever, um, for alcoholics, and it's I think it's called Al-Anon, or I think that's what it's called. Anyway, it's for people who aren't necessarily alcoholics, but they're affected by someone else's alcoholism, and that's one thing that they kind of teach is that you can't make someone stop drinking. So you have to start being okay with either one, you have to decide you're going to live with it and support it or whatever, or you have to decide to leave the situation, And so, like, I mean, because children of people who drink, sometimes they blame themselves for the fact that their parents are abusers or whatever. And so, I mean, it's a sad situation. But that's kind of how there's support groups for a lot of things out there. So I just picked that one because it's one that I've recognized. It's kind of one of the most recognized, it's anonymous, but it's one of the most recognized, right? So but just the fact that there are support groups, and that is, I just know that that's one of the things that they teach, because you have to decide how you're going to handle stuff on your own, and you can't just keep on living like it's your fault. You can't blame yourself for someone else's behavior. You have to take responsibility for what. So, and that's another thing I see sometimes, that's been a popular, like, just visual thing that I see that people will say is you know you may not have been responsible for what someone else says, but you are responsible for your reaction to it. And that kind of, it's like what they say with how they behave. I'm only responsible for how I react to things. And so, depending on how somebody else behaves, that's on them. And then how I react to it is my responsibility. So, we can't get mad when, I mean, there's so many things that go on these days, and everything is all public on Facebook and the news, and the media tends to shove stuff in our faces, and it's like, you know, I tend to just ignore a lot of that stuff, because if it doesn't apply to me personally, I just kind of go, it's not, it's not my place to be the judge and jury of something unless I'm actually on a jury in a courtroom. Like, that's the only time my opinion matters on on certain things. um and so, it's not my place to tell everybody else what I think about it necessarily. I mean, I might talk about it one-on-one in a conversation if it comes up, but other than that, I try to just keep my opinions to myself. And if I feel someone is attacking me, then yeah, I'm gonna probably try to stand up to that. But, like, I don't usually get too much of that, because I think that, um as long as we're not purposely going and trying to hurt other people, then most people aren't trying to hurt us. So, you know, um, cyberbullying has become really, bad lately. Like, when you see people comment nasty comments on other people's, it's just like, please, do you not? They don't understand boundaries, and what their own personal, role is in these people's lives. So you have to just decide, like, what are you going to waste your time on? And that's been a huge issue. So I don't know. That's just my take on boundaries, and how we can all kind of help each other by understanding our own personal boundaries, and teaching our kids, like, you don't. I My daughter had a situation, and it's really sad. A few years ago, she had some friends that she was really good friends with, and so she was probably, I want to say, sixth or seventh grade. So it's a really hard time for girls, and boys. I think junior high is a hard transition. She had come to this new school, met some new friends. Um, she's had a lot of these boundary experiences, which is so it's unfortunate, but I think that it was all about the way we handled it. So one experience, she had a friend who came from another school who she was so excited that she knew him and he was they became really good friends. Well, gradually he started separating her from her other friends. So he was he was one and if she wanted to eat lunch with her other friends, he got mad at her. And then on the playground, if they were playing and her other friends were like, hey, come play with us, and he would be like, no, 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 you come over here and you talk to me, and we don't talk to those people. And he would say bad things about her friends, and she's like, I just don't understand. And then he would get mad at her, and like he was being very possessive over her. And it wasn't a boyfriend girlfriend thing at all. It was just a, you're my friend. So it could have been easily another girl. um and then so eventually what happened is she literally would come home crying and be upset about the things that he would say about her friends that weren't true. And he would say so many like mean things, and it was because he wanted her attention. And if she was even remotely pretending that, or not pretending, but like giving them her time and attention, the other girls, he was just kind of attacking them for it. And so it just became this like big, it was a drama for probably a good 6 months. It just kind of went on and
Wow.
on. And then at one point he wanted to come over to our house, or he wanted her to come over to his house or something for like a play date or whatever. And it was kind of funny because we had a dog at the time, and he apparently was very allergic to pets. And so that was why he was saying, come to my house, but if you come over, you have to bring a change of clothes, and you have to take a shower when you get there, because we want to make sure that like you're not bringing in any of your pet dander or whatever it is. And the kid goes to school with people, and he's around people all day long who have pets, and apparently it's not affecting him. But like, there was like some strange things. And I don't think, it really was kind of just, he's just trying to control her. And so she's like, I'm not real comfortable with that. And then he got mad at her for not coming to his house. And then it just turned into this whole situation. And I finally had just sat her down and had talks and said, hey, look, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. If someone's pressuring you to do something, you just tell them no. And if they can't accept the no, then they have an issue, and they need to work on that themselves. And so you can't let them put that problem on you. So long story short, he goes and finds another friend who he's able to railroad and take advantage of. And then he started saying mean, nasty things about my daughter. And it came to a point where she wound up in the principal's office because he was accusing her of saying certain things and telling people stuff. And she was like, I never said that. I never said it. And they had no proof. And I don't believe she would have ever said the things that they accused her of. And so she never, like, nothing ever happened with it with the principal. But
Thank God.
in this day and age, he's in a class of how do we say, people who are treated with kid gloves. Like, he's in one of those, like, just that he needs to be treated special because he is special, and every person is special, but we don't have to like give people trophies just because maybe they. I'm trying to say it in a nice way, because I have no problem with it. It's when you put your views on everyone else and make it a problem is when it becomes a problem. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
so anyway, we we had to work real hard to just overcome that emotional stuff. That it took a toll.
Wow.
She is absolutely the sweetest girl, and everybody that meets her,
Yeah.
so she's so sweet. She's I don't think she's ever said a mean thing in her life about anyone, that wasn't true, or that, like, she's kind of like me. We observe things, and so sometimes we'll say something that
Excuse
might
me.
come off sounding a little, bless you, sounding a
Thank
little
you.
like, huh, but we just try to make observations. But yeah, so we had that whole thing that we dealt with. And then she became real good friends with a group of girls and was hanging around with them a lot, doing sleepovers. And one night she was there with, I think, three or four girls at one of the girls' house, and um, they they threw a remote or something at her when she wasn't prepared for it. It hit her in the head. So I think it like kind of left a mark on her forehead or something. And then while she was sleeping that night, they decided as a prank. So when I was a kid, pranks when people were sleeping at sleepovers were like shaving cream on the hand and you make them. I mean, I didn't do sleepovers much, but that was the type of thing. It was something like non-invasive and just silly, and you can wipe it off. They, I think they marked on her with permanent marker on her face. Um, they actually shaved her hair above her ear, like right here, to where like
Rude.
gonna put her hair in a ponytail. She had this little section like right here that was real awkward that they had shaved literally with a razor.
Whoa.
Like they didn't just cut her hair, they shaved it. And so she came home the next
Wow.
day and I had no idea that anything had happened. They did this while she was sleeping. And I she wasn't even going to tell me. And I feel so bad because I was a
Aww.
12-year old girl and she thought these people were her friends and they acted, they were all like friendly, but then, and so
Mean
she came
girls.
home and she went to show me the thing on her head, right? So she went to show me where she got hit by the remote. And then when she was doing that, she kind of had pulled her hair back a little and I saw that she wasn't even going to tell me about it. And I was like, I said, "What happened to your hair?" And she started crying and
Aww.
she said they did that while I was sleeping. And I said, and she thought I was going to be mad at her, which is it's just it just breaks your heart because she thought I was going to be mad about coming home and having her hair shaved. I was not mad at
Mm.
her, and I told her, I said, there is no reason for me to be mad at you. I think that if you don't say something to these girls, then I'm going to call their parents. And, because I didn't want to just jump to calling somebody's parents, but I told her she needs to set clear boundaries on what her friendships are and how they treat her. And I said, you cannot allow these girls to treat you like this. And you have to say, I'm not ever going to sleep over at your house again if this is the kind of thing you do. And I had to like take it to another level. And at that age, I was kind of like, I don't know if I really want to go to this next level or not. But I just said, what if there were boys there? And what if they were doing other things while you were sleeping and you didn't know? And I said, this is invasion of your personal body, and that's wrong. Like no matter what you do, it's something that like, I mean, what would she have done? You know what I mean? And that
Wow.
happens all the time, and it's so sad that it does happen all the time. And it's like, I mean, that's so she got real selective of her friends after that, and now she's still very selective. And the minute drama starts between friends, she shuts it down, and she says, we don't do that. I'm not here to be like a you got problems, you can talk to me and I won't tell anybody else. Like she knows that if somebody confides in her, if it's a secret and they don't want someone else to know, she does not tell, you know? I mean,
She's a good friend.
she's a very good friend. And we have had lots of conversations about, I mean, she has been bullied. She's a gorgeous, beautiful girl and she's been bullied, so it happens to
Mm.
everyone. It doesn't happen to, like, and I just feel because it happened to me, you know what I mean? Like it happened to me when I was a kid. And I mean, I think everybody's been through it at some point, but having the fact that like somebody else has bullied you doesn't mean that you need to turn around and do it to other people, you know?
Amen.
So I think we have to have these conversations with our kids so that they understand that, not only can they not allow someone else to invade their body, their space, their emotional. I mean, because with the one kid, I mean, it was emotional abuse, and that's how it starts. And I mean, like 11 or 12 years old, and she's coming home crying because her friend is threatening her to not be friends with her anymore if she talks to certain people. And that's just,
Wow.
I mean, like, that's where you're allowing someone else to control your actions and what you're doing. And if you let that, I mean, if you start that at that age and you think that that's just normal and it's okay, then what happens when you're an adult and you're married to someone who is controlling every single move you make, you know? And so I just really think that, like, we need to start teaching our kids at, even at 10 and 11, and every relationships they have, once they start hitting school, and when their friends start being mean to them, we have to say, you know what, you can't control how they act, but you can control how you react. And they're
Absolutely.
telling you things and doing things that you don't like. I mean, because it comes back to I mean, there's so many, it involves every aspect of your life. If you let people um control how you're doing, what you're saying, it's just, I mean, you can't allow it. You just can't. And I think we need to be taught that from such a young age, because if you're in healthy relationships, that's just the beginning and the basis of everything, is having healthy relationships and communication and knowing what to expect. I gotta say hi to Marley. She was watching. Um, she said break the cycle. I would guess, I think we've all been there. I think we've all kind of had some kind of experience with somebody who was trying to control us at some point. And we just have to really to take care of that. So I think our next adulting, I don't know, what should our next adulting topic be? Because I think we kind of beat this one to death.
Yeah, I think we've had a lovely conversation about boundaries. Maybe what to buy when.
Yes. Yeah, you brought that up. So let's come up with a timeline for what to buy and when. Because, yeah, that will thing was I would never have even, I never considered that. I mean, I moved out at 19, so I probably should have had a will that whole time, because
For sure.
1,500
You
miles.
never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
Well, and kids these days, young adults, I feel are okay. Let's go back to boundaries for just 1 second. I feel that when you start um, in a job that maybe you're working as a young adult. So if you're 17, 18, 19 years old and you're working, you get into the workplace, you start working with other adults who are in their late 20s, early 30s, 40s, 50s. They're all in another phase of life as you, right? Like, you're in the phase of, I'm just getting started and I need this job to get to the point where I can get out on my own. All these other people are out there living on their own and having kids and married and have houses and stuff. We have to remember, and we have to remember as adults who are trying to be influencers over the young kids and teach them, that they are in a different phase of life than us. They do not need to be going to buy a house at 20 years old if they can't afford it. So don't tell them
Good
that they
point.
should. Yeah, I mean, because I had that put on me at a young age. I was very mature for my age. I moved 1,500 miles away from home, and the first thing I heard was, "When are you getting married?" To my boyfriend at the time. "When are you getting married? When are you getting married?" And as soon as we got married, the next thing I heard was, "When are you having kids? When are you having kids? When are you having kids?" And it's like, well, I'm not ready to have kids yet. I just got married. And then it was, "When are you gonna buy a house? You're throwing your money away. You're paying rent. You're throwing your money away. You're throwing your money away." And it was like, it's just this over and over. It was all the time. And so by the time I was 20, 21, I was married, and I was on my way to buying a house at 21 years old. And now I look back and I go, how crazy is that? Everybody else at my age was in college still. And at the time I kind of felt good, because I'm like, oh yeah, look how far. But I let other people's influence rush me into things, and the adults in my life should have understood that they were crossing my boundaries by telling me that this was expected. Oh, well, this is the next step. This is what you got to do to be an adult. Well, yes, there's certain things we need to do as adults, but there's certain things we need to, like, there's other things to put in place first. Like you said, get a will and start managing your money properly before you start going and buying houses and doing things that you don't understand. Um, let's talk about that, because what to buy when is a pretty big deal. Because
I like it.
yeah,
We
when you
better wrap
start,
this up. I think we've been here almost an hour.
oh my gosh, we have. So yeah, so anyway, yeah, leave us your thoughts on boundaries, and if you've, your stories, and we want to hear from you. So, and
Sounds good.
yeah, so we'll sign off for today, and we'll see you guys next week.
Beautiful. Tony is leaving me to go work out right now, so I
Oh
gotta
my
go too.
gosh, you have to go. So yeah, that went a lot longer than I thought, but I think it's important. So
For sure.